Thank you very much. And first of all, a big thank you to the mosque for providing the facilities tonight, and to yourself for hosting the meeting. And for those of you who are not from the Finsbury Park area, I want to say a special thank you to the mosque because of not just tonight's event, but opening up this community room on so many occasions for so many other things, and providing support for so many local community organisations and community groups. This is a mosque that's playing a huge part in the local community, as well as supporting people at the big events and Friday prayers and other events, but also providing that place of sense and the place of support for so many people in the community. So thank you very much for all that you do. Today in Parliament we had and last night as well, we had a debate yesterday on the Middle East and this morning on Gaza, but in reality they were the same debate. And there was something has changed over the past 10 days or so. Immediately after the news of the killings of the 9 young Turkish people on the Mavi Marmara boat, there was revulsion, understandably, all around the world, and universal condemnation of the Israeli forces and Israel for instructing those forces as to what to do. And when the Foreign Secretary then made a statement to the House of Commons straight after that event, from memory, not one member of Parliament got up and said anything in support of Israel. Not one. They were all degrees of criticism. Maybe they were too ashamed. I don't know. And then there's been a public relations fight back by Israel. No, I'm very bad, and I shouldn't quote my own speeches. But when we had if you'll let me just off this once, just this once. When we had the rally last week before, outside the Israeli embassy, I said there that Israel operates a Teflon-coated public relations industry, and they will come back. And sure as anything, they have now come back. They've attempted to differentiate between all the ships in the flotilla, to claim there were unspecified, unsubstantiated weapons within the ship, and to claim that this was really an attack on Israel. They've dredged up various lawyers who've managed to say that somehow or other it's perfectly legal to board an unarmed vessel in international waters and take it into custody, imprison all the passengers and then deport them. Somehow or other that is apparently, according to some Israeli lawyers, entirely legal. I'm not quite sure which particular law it's legal under, but nevertheless they will continue saying that, I'm sure. And then they recognise the wholly legitimate demand being made by just about everybody for an independent legal inquiry into the events. And the UN Security Council resolution also called for an independent inquiry. So what do we get? Israeli lawyers are appointed to undertake an inquiry, and to make it independent, they've asked Lord Trimble, former Chief Minister of Northern Ireland, who I've known for many years in his capacity as leader of the Ulster Unionist Party, and I've also known in every single debate that I've attended that he's been in Parliament over the past 20 years concerning the Middle East, he's always been supporting Israel, right, wrong, indifferent, whatever. Objective, I don't think so. Independent, I'm certain not. So why on earth today then did the Minister, Alistair Burt, and last week, or yesterday rather, the Foreign Secretary say, well, this was a quite sufficient response, but we'd have to wait and see what they came up with. It's all about buying time. It's all about slowly dividing up those that were on the ships, damaging the public image of the flotilla, and creating this chimera of illusion that somehow or other this is an independent inquiry. That is what it's all about. Well, some of us having none of it, and we said so very clearly today in the debate about Gaza, and the points are quite simply this. 1.5 million people are in prison. They are not starving, but they're denied access to any reasonable variety of food. Many are malnourished. Many are suffering from lack of medical attention and medical equipment, and the psychological damage to the population, and it is largely a young population, is huge. Just imagine if the sum total of your existence was roughly between here, Manor House, and the River Thames, and that was it, and you weren't in London. You were not in a densely populated, vibrant city like London. You were in a place that's slightly more sparsely populated, but without the variety and everything else. You couldn't travel anywhere. Also, young people in Gaza are by and large quite well educated, because the school system run by the United Nations is not all bad, and there's a higher level of graduate and postgraduate education in Palestine than any other country in the entire region. So you've got the unbelievable frustration of thwarted ambition amongst young people. Can't go anywhere, can't do anything, can't work. All they can do is survive and wait for the next UN handout to come along. And when the West condemns the tunnels, as they endlessly do, the illegal tunnels, the smuggling that goes on through the tunnels, without those tunnels, there would be disaster in Gaza. There would be real hardship, real shortages, real problems. The tunnels provide sustenance. And when we were in Gaza in February, a delegation of us, we toured around, and we had a meal in the destroyed Parliament building that we ate in the open air because the roof had been damaged taken off by Israeli mortar shells. And we had a dinner, which was fine. The falafels were excellent. I enjoyed them very much. And at the end of the dinner, people said, "Well, all this, can we say thank you to the tunnels? Because had the tunnels not been there, you wouldn't have had anything to eat." And that's the reality of it. So people get angry. And when we had the big demonstrations after Operation Cast Lead, the whole world could see with their naked eyes on television exactly what was happening. 1,400 dead, phosphorus bombs being used, and the targeting of civilian positions. And again, during my visit in February, I went to the buildings that had been destroyed, the houses that had been destroyed, the people still living in tents, the people still suffering all that, more than a year afterwards, no rebuilding whatsoever. And then I went to a school, very large secondary school, where I'd been to before as an election observer when it was heaving with people who were trying to vote. Mortar shells went straight through the school to destroy the roof, damage the infrastructure of the building. Quite clever, actually, because if you put a mortar shell at the right position through a pre-stressed concrete building, you can wreck the entire building with one shell, or you can make it unusable because it's dangerous. They're smart. They did all that. So the whole school is out of commission, and so on and so on. And then walking down streets, and now many in this room have been in Palestine, or certainly been in Middle Eastern towns, vibrant, small shops, trading, buying, doing things, making things, mending things, all that, craftspeople and everybody else at work. You go down streets in Gaza, streets and streets, boarded up, nothing happening, nobody doing anything. Why? Because there's two things you need for a shop. One is you need goods to sell, and two is you need people to buy them. In the case of Gaza, you've got nothing to sell because it's not there, and there's people can't buy because they've got no money. So hence the economy is being destroyed bit by bit. So when we had the demonstration last year, it was a massive affair. There was huge numbers of people there, and the events that happened at the end of the demonstration were an expression of anger about what was happening in Gaza by a lot of very young people, many of whom were on their first ever demonstration, who wanted to express that anger. The sentences that they've suffered as a result of it are absolutely appalling. And so now that there's been a procession of people now pleading innocent rather than guilty to those offences, because I hesitate to get involved in legal advice, but I would like to suggest they've had rather better legal advice than some people had at the beginning, and they have therefore, in some cases, won their cases and got off altogether. So what I'm supporting is a call for a judicial inquiry into the whole process surrounding that demonstration, surrounding the charging, surrounding the conviction, so we can reopen all of the cases. Because it seems to me there's an injustice going on here that is actually very unfair against some of the young people who've been put into prison sentences for essentially for attending a demonstration. The purpose behind this, I believe, is to try to deter anyone from going on demonstrations. I've represented this area for a very long time.